have one item in our consent agenda, if anybody would like to remove it. Are you removing? All right. Director Drew is removing it. Director Neal, did you want to also remove it? Is that what you're doing? Okay. If you're okay, well, I'm going to go to Director Neal first, just because you should chair the committee, and then I'll come to you next. Do you want to just push the button? Thanks. All right, Director Neal, do you want to move the motion first, or do something with it?
Yes.
I had you all ready to go and push the buttons.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, I will move the recommendations contained in the report here today. And I will thank
Just kind of jump in. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Back to you.
And I will thank all the delegations for coming here today. This did come to the Environment and Culture Committee twice, and we had significant discussion here as well. We heard a lot of things. We've heard a lot of things about the industry and about the potential for growth. We've heard a lot of things about air quality. We've heard a lot of things about consultation. This is a multi-part motion, and it contains a lot about consultation, about including consultation with Metro Vancouver, about including health impacts as part of that consultation. I think the primary part here that's being discussed is the term opposition. I do stand by that term with everything we've heard here today. And I do so for several reasons. One is that this is thermal coal, it's not metallurgical. The jobs in Metro Vancouver are about 25. We've also heard that there may or may not be storage on site. We heard that in the committee as well, and we asked a lot more questions about it. I'm not convinced that there won't be storage within Metro Vancouver. I also know that we need to work with our other partners in their other jurisdictions around the issues around both the barges and the rail, because those are not under our direct control. But we have a mandate here, and that is air emissions. And our air emissions, our air quality policies here, say that we must have continually improving air quality in the region. We work very, very hard on that. We have over 2,000 monitoring stations, including a mobile one, that constantly monitors air quality throughout our region to ensure that we are achieving our goal of consistently improving air quality. We also have to achieve that on a site-by-site basis for major sites such as a facility we're discussing here today. I'm not convinced that we can maintain that goal of continually improving air quality at Fraser Surrey Docks with the addition of the pass-through of U.S. coal, thermal coal, off to Texada Island. I won't take any more time than that. I think there'll be a lot more debate to come. I may have some concluding comments, but for now, I am supporting the motion. I believe it's the right thing for us to do to take the stance. It will go through further process with our staff in terms of an air emissions permit if that request come in. What we're stating here today is that as elected officials, we have an opinion on this. We have every right to have that opinion. And my opinion is that we should oppose this.
Thank you very much. And I apologize, it was my error. We were going to have a staff give a quick presentation on sort of where we are in this roadmap. You kind of did a little bit of there, Heather. But Roger, do you mind coming down and giving that presentation? And then I do have a long speaking list here that we'll go through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if the timer's on, but I get more than 5 minutes.
Probably not. But I won't put the timer on. I'll just give you a reminder.
So I have probably about a 10-minute presentation, but since we've heard a lot of this information earlier, I'm going to skip through a lot of it. What I want to cover today is just basically Metro Vancouver's authority, our role in the review process. I do want to provide some context, which I think was asked for earlier about the airship and Pacific Northwest coal activity. Probably won't spend a lot of time on the potential impacts of coal activity. We've heard that all morning now. Speak a little bit about the public process and the process going forward, particularly with respect to interagency referral. So Metro Vancouver's role under the Environmental Management Act, we have the delegation authority for air quality within this region. We're guided by periodic air quality management plans, which contain a number of actions for guiding continuous improvement in the airshow, as Director Neal has just spoken to.
Roger, can I just hear you speak a little closer to the mic?
And our board...
And maybe move the other one over. Maybe think so. I'll help out.
Just speak louder.
All right. There you go. Sorry. Probably a reflection of my height. So our board adopts our quality bylaws and regulations, and Our bylaw actually enables a system of air emissions permits, which are administered by our staff. We do have a number of permits that are actually enforced for facilities that are on port lands currently. These permits include conditions that address emission sources at an industrial facility, but I do want to make very clear that they don't address transportation sources as they enter or leave the facilities. In terms of those sources that we don't have jurisdiction for, we do work collaboratively with other levels of government on the sources that are not in our jurisdiction. I think that this is going to be a helpful slide in terms of the amount of coal that's potentially moving through the Pacific Northwest. I attended a meeting of air quality agencies north and south of the border about a month ago, and this was presented by the Washington State Department of Ecology. We can see a number of the facilities proposed in Washington and Oregon. Some of these are pretty sizable, 30 million, 44 million, 8 million, and 48 million tons of coal. And that 48 million tons of coal is at the Gateway Pacific Terminal proposed for Cherry Point, just south of the border. I do want to point out that these are all at different stages of approval in the various state agency processes south of the border, but none of them have yet received permission to go ahead. And then looking at, and this is an American slide, so they've tucked us Canadians up into the top there, but these are the facilities that we're looking at. The Neptune terminal is going from 8 to 18 million tons of coal. The existing West Shore terminals, which has a capacity of about 33 million tons, and the Fraser Surrey Docks proposal, which is going from 0 to 8 million tons. And this is, for Fraser Surrey Docks anyway, that is coal moving to us from Powder River Basin in Wyoming. I'm not going to spend any time on the overview of the facilities that we have. Neptune terminals is metallurgical coal. Their status is that the project permit has been issued by Port Metro Vancouver in January of 2013. And within Metro Vancouver, we are awaiting the application to amend their existing Metro Vancouver air permit. And again, that permit won't address marine vessels or rail cars in transit. Fraser Surrey Docks, this is a proposed new coal handling facility increasing to 4 million and potentially 8 million tons per year. And this is the thermal coal coming from Wyoming. They have submitted a project permit application to Port Metro Vancouver that's currently under review, and they have submitted actually a draft air permit application to Metro Vancouver in May of 2013. So some of the issues that we're concerned about. Global greenhouse gas emissions. I don't think I need to spend very much time on this. We're looking at the potential export of 60 million tons per year of coal through the Port of Metro Vancouver. Whether that's thermal coal for power generation or metallurgical coal for steel making, they both result in significant greenhouse gas emissions, albeit in another part of the world. We've heard significant opposition to the transport of coal through the port on the basis of these climate change impacts. There's no authority for Metro Vancouver to address greenhouse gases in the end use of coal outside the region or the emissions due to the ocean transport of that coal. Now I'm just going to drill through some slides on the other sources of emissions, and this is rail emissions. We're worried about engine exhaust. This is rail locomotives. We also would have additional vehicle idling at rail crossings. In terms of the rail locomotives, this is diesel, a form of diesel that is used for rail locomotives. So as most of the board knows, we have a significant program to address diesel particulate matter in the region. It is our #1 health concern in terms of air pollution. I think we've heard a lot about fugitive dust emissions. This is basically carryover of coal dust from the rail cars in transit. The primary authority for rail emissions is with the federal government. Transport Canada under the Railway Safety Act, Environment Canada with respect to fuel standards. Metro Vancouver, however, can advocate for mitigation measures, new programs or regulations, and carry out monitoring. The next slide deals with marine transport emissions, essentially the same picture. Marine vessels, again, using a grade of diesel. Fugitive dust emissions from the coal barges and marine vessels as they are in transit. Primary authority, similar situation with the federal government, Transport and Environment Canada, and same role for Metro Vancouver in terms of advocating for additional mitigation and monitoring programs. Where both Port Metro Vancouver and Metro Vancouver have a role is with the coal terminal facilities themselves. We will again have engine exhaust emissions at the facilities. This is primarily in the storage and handling equipment, and again, those are diesel equipment that are being used at the coal facilities. Fugitive dust, I think, is a big question mark. We have fugitive dust emissions anytime there's loading or unloading or any handling of coal at the facility. And we do have the issue of wind erosion of storage piles. I think one of the big questions that came out of the town hall in New Westminster was the extent and the duration of use of these storage piles. It isn't clear. It's been characterized by the proponent as emergency storage, which under most situations they wouldn't need. but I think Director Steves has raised a number of times the issue of when the wind speed exceeds 40 kilometers an hour as the coal gets stored on site. So these, again, the coal terminals are tenants of Port Metro Vancouver. They must go through the port's review process to get a project permit. I think Mr. Sylvester spoke to that at the very first delegation. Facilities must also operate under an air emissions permit for Metro Vancouver. And so of the 3 coal facilities, West Shore has an existing permit. Fraser Surrey Docks, I think I said this earlier, has a draft application for a new permit. And Neptune terminals are waiting for their permanent event application to put in new facilities for expansion of coal handling. I did want to speak a little bit about the experience at Deltaport. West Shore Terminals has operated since 1970 and handles about 27 million tons of coal per year. We did put in a new air quality monitoring station in 2010 at Tawasin. The station was funded by Port Metro Vancouver to help assess the impacts of the Deltaport expansion. After 2 years of data, we've shown comparatively low concentrations of most pollutants. The data does show that the station is compliant with all of our ambient air quality objectives, but we are able to discern a footprint from ship emissions, which contribute to our sulfur dioxide levels. Nevertheless, there's been a long-standing citizen concern about black particulate deposits. It's been difficult to definitively link these particles to coal. It may also be diesel exhaust. But West Shore Terminals, I think they mentioned earlier, they have their own dust well canister sampling, and they report the results to Metro Vancouver as a condition of the permit. And the Corporation of Delta is planning to do additional dust well canister sampling this summer. So based on the consultant studies, which we heard a little bit about again through the delegations earlier, these are studies that have been prepared for the port's review process, not for Metro Vancouver's review process. The total emissions of the smog-forming pollutants, and this is the sum of all these different pollutants that are shown on the slide, they're not significant in an overall airshed context. We think about based on the consultant studies, about 0.3% of the regional total for Neptune and less than 0.1% of the regional total for Fraser Surrey Docks. But nevertheless, we know that localized concerns are also going to be, localized impacts are also going to be a concern. Fraser Surrey Docks consultants have applied a dispersion model to predict the ambient concentrations. They're finding that outside of the fence line of Fraser Surrey Docks, there are low impacts according to the modeling, and that the results are within the ambient air quality objectives. However, in our own review of the data submitted as part of the port process, we have a number of questions. We would like to follow up with the proponents as part of our own permit review process. Just to name a couple of uncertainties, there appear to be sources of fugitive coal dust which have not been included in the modeling. There are very overly conservative assumptions about the coal pile, and there's uncertainty, well that's the next point, sorry, uncertainty about the extent and use of the coal storage pile. And we have not seen dispersion modeling specific to the Neptune terminal's facility. So moving forward, our staff will review the component information, detailed follow-up with regard to permit applications, clarification on the sources included, and the scope of the environmental review that's being conducted. It's very important to do cumulative assessment of the proposed facilities. In other words, not taking into consideration not just the new facilities, but also all of the other sources that contribute to the background in the vicinity of that proposal, which would include rail transport, other transportation emissions, and barge loading. Ultimately, our Metro Vancouver District Director, and I should make the point that is not me, we purposely separated the policy group from the permitting and regulation group here at Metro Vancouver. It's very important that District Director makes an independent and unfettered permit decision. Within his permitting decision, he will stipulate conditions that are advisable for the protection of the environment. I put in here in red some of the things that are in the recommendations that are before the board. Seeking the expertise of health authorities on potential health impacts. And the permit process of Metro Vancouver will include public notification. And again, sources such as locomotives and barges in transit are not within Metro Vancouver's permitting jurisdiction. These emissions are definitely of concern to the regional airshed, and you need appropriate mitigation measures, monitoring and follow-up, and that will be raised with the port, with Transport Canada and Environment Canada. And that again is one of the recommendations in the report. So in terms of public process, I think it would be an understatement for me to say that Port Metro Vancouver's public process has been criticized. Fraser Surrey Docks has held 2 public meetings. New Westminster hosted a very well-attended town hall on May 30th. We have presentations and panelists from Fraser Surrey Docks, Port Metro Vancouver, the Health Authority, New Westminster Environmental Partners, most of these spoke here today, and ourselves, Metro Vancouver. So our permitting process does allow for public notification, and within that public notification, we would hear submissions or receive submissions from persons who feel that they may be adversely affected, and there is a provision for public meetings as part of our permit process. Finally, in terms of interagency referral, I think the board stressed this, we do work collaboratively with our partners. This includes the port, the senior governments, other regional districts, and health authorities. However, we believe that the referral process for project reviews, and in particular the process that we've been through on both Neptune and Fraser Surrey Docks, between Port Metro Vancouver and these other agencies could be improved. One of the benefits of that would be joint development of the scope of environmental review. We heard the consultant earlier say that the terms of reference for the environmental review was set by the port. It would have been better for that to have been jointly agreed to with ourselves in Metro Vancouver to limit the amount of work that the proponent would have to do their environmental assessments. And very important, and this is the other recommendation, is to include the health authorities for their expertise in health impact assessment. So that's everything I have.
Thank you very much for all those clarifications. I think that will help with our discussion. Director Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe it would be both useful and in fact advisable if the board considered the different parts of the proposed recommended resolution at City Ave. In particular, items 1A, 1B, 1C, and I would like to so move.
Right, we can do that.
I'm moving separation.
You don't need to move it or second it, you just need to request it. Done. That was easy, eh? Thanks. Director Steves.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah, point of clarification, thanks. We are on item A now, because we separated them. You're going to forego that? Okay, we'll give you some time, I guess. So I'm going to go through a list here. If you want to speak to C only, just sort of do what Harold just did. So, Director Jackson, or you can push a button and turn your speaking indicator on. Director Jackson?
Okay. I'm just trying to reread A here as we make sure that I'm going to be speaking to A. I'm sorry, it says A. But Delta, as you know, has had a port ashore for many years. And we're very lucky that we've got the type of committee that we have with Port Metro Vancouver. And perhaps Metro Vancouver itself should consider reinstating the port committee that I had while we were here for 6 years. I'll leave that with the chair. But I think the reasons that we did have a port committee with Port Metro Vancouver, or with Metro Vancouver, was to continue to talk about the issues that we're talking about today. So I will put that for your consideration. We, very early on in Delta, met with not only Port Metro Vancouver on a couple of occasions on this specific proposal, but we've also met several times with Surrey, Fraser Docks as well. And we asked all the questions that were asked today. Many of the things that have been said here aren't really quite accurate by some of the folks out there, but that's not their fault particularly. These are very important items. These are very important questions. And I think they deserve a lot of consideration as far as the answers are concerned. We were very lucky in Delta because we had these people here. We talked informally, we talked formally, we talked with council, and I think we had all our questions answered. So I don't have too many questions to put forward. I think having one train a day coming through Delta, and I think it's one of the longest roads that's going to be taken, and why we looked at it very closely was because of the train in motion. Was there going to be dust particles coming off that train and running up the hill? I'm fairly convinced in terms of the spray that they use across Canada and the United States that it is effective. It is an effective tool as long as it is sprayed at the appropriate locations along the line. And I don't see any reason why they can't spray it as they're coming across the border if that's something somebody wants to discuss. There are a lot of checks and balances here in terms of the permitting system that they have for air quality here in Vancouver. Obviously, very rigorous requirements through our own staff, also through other levels of government as well in terms of the permit that is required. I listened again about the mitigation, about the questions of storing coal, transporting coal, the rail, the land, what's happening out at West Shore. And there are very active marine activities right there at the port. And the port is very proud of the things that they have done out there. And that has been done through and with the Citizens Committee that we have. There's a lot of mitigation that they've spoken about, and prevention plans, et cetera, et cetera. And we went round and round and round this, and I mean, this is not a lot of new information for me, but I'll tell you one thing that did happen. And I have to speak very specifically to the longshoremen and the steel union. I'm from a mining town in northern Ontario, from Sudbury, Ontario, and I grew up in mining. All my people were in mining. And my brother finally became a director of health and safety at International Medical. He was steel union. And I will tell you, someone mentioned this before about the jobs and about the workers would take anything they wanted to keep the job. And I resent that remark. The unions would never allow their people to be in jeopardy, ever. And when I asked the question finally of the union people that I did meet with relative to some of these things that were being proposed, I said, do you have one iota of problem in terms of health and safety for your people? The answer was unequivocal no. They don't have any problems. So that was a big message for me, because if you've got people there that are working in this industry and they are satisfied with the safety and health of their workers and themselves and their family and their kids, then shouldn't we look at that very seriously? And that made a big impact on me. So I do not support opposition. I think we should continue to move forward. There are checks and balances. There are things that are still happening. It has not been approved as yet. And I'm sorry to carry on, Mr. Chair, but we have had a lot of public input from my perspective of Delta through the auspices of the board. And so those are a few of my comments, and I thank you very much for allowing me extra time.
Thanks, and I will just comment just to make sure that we're clear that much of the terms of reference of the Port Committee got rolled into the Transportation Committee. It just broadened its scope. It didn't actually reduce its scope. So thank you for that. Next is Director Corrigan.
Well,
we're still on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that I think we're going to vote in seriatim, but I think that speaking on the issue is holding to the order would be helpful. That being said, I want to first of all say that very much like Director Jackson, my family since the 19th century were coal miners here in British Columbia, and both my great-grandfathers were coal miners. And in fact, my grandfather died of throat cancer as a result of his work in the coal mines. I know that the coal mines in British Columbia were the first industry that was unionized. Is that the Wobblies came to British Columbia because the atrocities in our coal mines were so severe that it drew the attention of people from around the world and constituted the first resource-based unions that were formed because of the deaths that occurred in our coal mines. So a lot of progress has been made over a lot of years. for unions to be patting the industry on the back and supporting expansions. I don't know if that's true with the union in Wyoming, because there probably isn't one. But I am interested in this issue because I see the impact. This is not about business against the environment. It's not about jobs in the economy. It's not about any of those issues. It's about importing coal from the United States. It's mined in the United States, where the profit is made in the United States, and the resources are based in the United States, into Canada, simply for the purposes of shipping it out. This isn't about us supporting Canadian industries and Canadian workers and the benefits that come from exploiting our resources and sending them overseas. This is about somebody else doing that and us simply being a conduit for those materials to come through our port. And so it makes no sense to me for us to be accepting additional risks in order to make that happen. If we are going to accept risks on behalf of the coal industry within our own country and access the coal that benefits workers and the bottom line in Canada, not in the U.S. And that's the biggest factor in this that affects me. Additionally, is that we already have Roberts Bank, and we've accommodated the movement of coal throughout Roberts Bank, and it is a deep sea port. In this situation, we're being asked to move coal twice in our country, is to move it at the Fraser Docks, and then to take it over and move it again, knowing that most of the damage environmentally is caused by the movement of goods, is that we're asked to do it twice in our country because the Americans aren't able to access the same resources in the United States. In fact, it's so controversial that in Seattle they had 2,200 delegations and something like 120,000 pieces of correspondence coming in on this. It is massively controversial. If we roll over on it, we're sending a very bad image to the rest of the world. The second problem is that the people that we got that are supposed to be looking after our interests, in the case of the Port Corporation, we've heard, are mostly appointed by the users, mostly appointed by the very companies that are wanting to export the coal. So the expression that you've got the fox guarding the hen house is quite appropriate in this situation. And even when you get to the Surrey Board of Trade stepping up and saying, we support it, as the chair of their environment committee, as a consultant for the very company that in fact is making this, putting this project forward. So, you know, we are in a difficult position because we are essentially the last gatekeeper as to whether or not the public is protected from decisions that can be adverse to the general public's health. We also have the urging of our public health officers to be careful with this. We have the issue of climate change generally. I am not an opponent of the coal industry in Canada, but the issue of taking coal from the United States, bad coal, the most difficult coal, the cheapest coal, bringing it into Canada, processing it twice through our ports, taking all of the environmental risk for none of the real benefits, and at the end of it, we get 25 jobs. So let's not make this a business versus environment. Let's make this a practical decision that this makes absolutely no sense to us as Canadians to put ourselves in this position. If we accept risk, get the benefits of accepting that risk, not a situation like this where it's all risk, no gain. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments. Director Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take quite a different tack and speak to item 1A, which is what's on the table before us. With all due respect to my colleagues. But anyway, item A is a request for additional information and clarification. I think that's readily supportable and very useful to the board and others, and I am speaking to.
Thank you very much. Alternate Director Robinson.
Point of clarification, we're looking at 1A only or 1A and 1B?
1A only.
I'm all for it, thank you.
Thank you. Director Robertson.
Well, I was under the impression we were speaking to the whole motion, but we would be separate to vote.
We have.
And so I was going to follow Mayor Corrigan's lead, just making comments related to the whole motion. But
it's up to you. Because you're either going to make it now or you're going to make it in 5 minutes at just one seat. So just don't say it twice.
Don't process it twice. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that wasn't saying that others said that. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying. Sorry. Go ahead. Thanks.
It's 5 minutes, though.
Okay, so first of all, a big thanks to all the delegations. This was a really important meeting to have. I think it's important to have this debate, and I know a lot of people have called for it. Certainly we've seen an incredible amount of debate and consultation south of the border, and a lot of concerns that we've heard, I think, to each of our councils about the lack of consultation and engagement around the proposals that are working their way through the system right now for Metro Vancouver. I think it's good that we've had this day to work on it, and thank all the people for coming and many for staying right through. The key point here is air quality, and I think with regards to 1C, I support this motion and the opposition to coal shipments within the context of air quality primarily. That's our jurisdiction here. I have lots of concerns about many of the other elements of this, and many that were raised, but specific to air quality, I think it's ridiculous to think that coal dust is benign. And there have been many studies. We've heard lots of commentary and lots of literature widely available that calls it into question. So I think on those grounds alone, we have a concern here, and we need to oppose the shipments based on impact on our airshed. But I think the additional concerns on climate are extremely important. I think it's really unfortunate the federal and provincial government aren't focused on aggressive reduction of climate pollution. Coal is a major contributor to that, and we need rigorous debate on expansion of the industry. For starters, we have a relatively healthy economy here on the West Coast, and I think the whole context of these proposals coming forward, which don't put jobs at risk or threat, we're talking about next steps with our economy. I think first and foremost, we've got to take care of the economy that we have, and we are having, I think, very powerful and valuable brand here in Metro Vancouver that we need to protect as a sustainable and livable region. That has to come first and foremost, and the concerns that have been voiced by many about climate need to be taken into consideration, not directly within the context of our board decisions, but I think when other governments fail to recognize the importance of that, we need to speak to it, address it, and urge all of the citizens to keep calling for action on that front. So I think more rigorous process is warranted, and more detailed information. I think we're going to have to take notice and drill down with all of the proposals that come forward henceforth that may impact our airshed, and I would argue that engagement is a key part of that. Creating forums like this and being able to hear from people who live in this region about the future of our economy and our environment and our communities is critical. And we'll be supporting the motion. Thank you very much. Director Long.
Well, I pushed the button, unpushed the button, unpushed it. Because this issue is like that. It's kind of like trying to put jello in a pot, right? Because I'd like to bring the board's attention, I can thank you, Mr. Chair, to the report of March the 25th, where this all started. Mr. Pond's presentation was very thorough. Our staff was on top of this. We were very, very concerned, right, about air quality and so forth. And the report of March the 25th asked for permission or direction to get more involved in the process, to look at the final, formalizing the procedures and so forth, the inclusion of health impacts. So initially, this thing started out, I think, very well, that we were concerned, our staff were on top of it, and we wanted to be part of the process and make sure that this thing was, the approval process was thorough and and so forth. So I just want to speak now that I'm in favor of 1A and 1B, and item number 2. Where it got off the rail was when we started talking about the appropriateness of 43% of the world feeding themselves with coal or even turning off electricity, because that's the only way to get electricity in most of the world. Rail issues and marine issues and land use and the types of jobs and whether they're appropriate or not. It's all really interesting. It's been a great day. But I think we need to get back to where we started. Staff had a concern. They needed some direction from the board, authorization to the board to make a much more thorough and transparent process and keep us in the loop. That's what we should support. The other one is the political.
And dike repairs and beach repairs, and we can have up to 40,000 people over the summer coming into the beach area. Now there's major traffic issues because people can't get in and out when there's a train going through. The trains used to be short. Now we're looking at 20 minutes at different times as they block the access. There's no emergency access. There's no commitment by the Port Authority or the railway to pay for that kind of access, or even to a partner, which would be $8 to $10 million. But believe me, someone was going to be in a position and they'll lose their life, because that has happened before in Crescent Beach. Ambulance couldn't get through, and considering the number of people that are accessing the White Rock Beach and that are accessing Crescent Beach, there's going to be a death because of the train blocking access. So I'm right now letting you know that I'm very concerned about that. I don't support the dirtiest coal possible coming out of Wyoming. I grew up in Wyoming. So the oil industry is flat there, the natural gas industry is flat there because of competition. So now they're going to their last major resource, which is the dirtiest coal possible. And I don't think we benefit as the Metro Vancouver region to transport that, as Mayor Corrigan said, we're not benefiting our community. 25 jobs is nothing in comparison to the possible environmental impact on our estuaries and our oceans. So I definitely don't support, I don't support aid because I don't want to see the process continue. I'm definitely against this project.
Thanks very much. Mr. Steves.
Thank you. The International Energy Agency has told us that we must keep 2/3 of our existing fossil fuel reserves in the ground if we're going to prevent going over the dangerous 2 degrees centigrade climate change level. The United Nations has told us they're going to make a decision on this sometime between 2018 and 2020. In the next 5 to 7 years, we are going to see the biggest gold rush in history, because every coal company, every oil company is going to want to take that stuff out of the ground and ship it and burn it somewhere before the doors are closed. We saw the map our staff showed us of how many applications there are in the United States. We had applications here. So that, my friends, is what the problem is. We are looking at a massive change in the climate prior to getting the United Nations reports and all the other reports brought forward. It will happen before the international community gets their acts together if this whole proposal and others go ahead. Now, I want to tell you why I'm so passionate about it from a health perspective. I am allergic to coal particulate and coal dust. For the first 25, and even I talk about coal, I get choked up. For the first 25 and 30 years of my life, I lived on a farm. The air was pristine and clean. No one in my family smoked. We didn't have a diesel tractor. In fact, we started out with horses. We burned coal. Every day, my father went down to our basement and broke up big lumps of coal and put them in the furnace. The coal dust permeated the house. The soot from the chimneys came down around us. The coal man would bring the sacks in from the truck and dump it. The coal dust was everywhere. Then my father said, well, that's terrible. Let's get a coal stoker. It might be cleaner. It's contained. It wasn't, because it had a thing in it that churned the coal up and sent it into the furnace. And the coal dust was even worse. He watered it down. Watering it down didn't work. And I became allergic to particulate. Well, by the time I was 25 or 30 years old, I'm now allergic to diesel particulate and a few other things. But it started with coal. It cost me my health system $10,000 to break that allergy about 10 years ago. Last year, I went to China because my sister city in China. I stayed there 5 days. The day we came in, it was raining. The rain stopped. The sun came out. It was beautiful and clear, and then the clouds rolled in. For 5 days, I breathed coal dust in particular, and everything else is in the air. My asthma has come back. I'm now on a blue thing 4 times a day, steroids once a day, and it has not affected my asthma that I got the 5 days I was in China. That said, about 30 years ago, and I know a lot about coal, the BC government was going to burn Hat Creek coal in Hat Creek near Cache Creek, adjacent to our ranch. I got involved to fight the Hat Creek coal project, and we wanted, we said, keep it in the ground. Hat Creek coal and Wyoming coal are identical. They are full of contaminants. Heavy metals, iron, lead, arsenic, everything. And we convinced the BC government we should not mine or burn Hat Creek coal. And here we are today contemplating going against everything that we have believed in this province and allowing it to be imported and shipped through our ports. I think it's a travesty, and it suggests to those people that are supporting it, in terms of the problems with climate change, there is no excuse to say it was somebody else's decision or I am not responsible. It's our decision. And if you want to invoke some pretty terrible climatic changes, we're seeing them happening already today, just vote in favor of the proposal because we're going to see cold ports all up and down this coast if everybody does the same thing we do.
Thank you for your comments. Director Masako.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I also want to add my thanks to those who all presented here this morning and this afternoon. I know our time is short. I certainly will be supporting the motion that's on the table here. I think it's the right way to go, especially when you receive a letter from the Chief Medical Health Officer expressing some concerns. And as a healthcare professional working in the industry, I think you have to be very respectful of that and follow the science-based evidence. That being said, I think you also have to be mindful of the fact that we have a quality of life that is based on exploitation of fossil fuels, and the challenge is going to be meeting this off of that. We in North Vancouver have metallurgical coal, Neptune, and we've had a long history dealing with Neptune bulk terminals, sometimes very harmonious, sometimes acrimonious. But I do have to say that over the years that they have responded to our requests in many ways. We asked for spray poles, we asked for engines that are non-diesel, and we've asked for water recycling, and they've done that. So I think as far as they go, they've been very professional in that regard. And it's going to be very difficult for us as a nation to function without metallurgical coal. We all use steel in our lives. So I think we have to ask them to meet the standards, but also be mindful of the fact that there are different types of coals that are being used. At the end of the day, the real challenge is going to be how do we move to a less carbon-intensive economy, but still enjoy the quality of lifestyle we have. That's the real challenge. We enjoy an amazing quality of life because of our yokes of sale of coal, oil, and gas, and it gives us a great quality of life. If we stop that, it changes our lifestyle. So how do we transition to a more sustainable lifestyle, a more sustainable economy? We need to do that now as we move forward. I think the numbers of presenters have said. But we should be mindful of those are the real challenges as we move forward.
Thank you very much. Alternate Director Robinson.
Thank you, Chairperson Moore. Since everyone seems to be speaking to the undertone of parts A, B, and C, I will do such, and I'll do it quickly. The question is, why are we considering a new bulk coal transfer facility in the very heart of an aesthetically, socially, and environmentally sensitive world-class metropolitan area that will reach 3 million people by 2040? This is not a deep water port offering direct loading as is West Shore. This bulk coal terminal is not a terminus of a high-speed modern rail line such as the Roberts Bank Rail Corridor. Coal dust impact is controversial, we've heard that all day, but the greatest possible exposure appears to occur at loading and unloading of the commodity. This terminal is upstream on the Fraser River, one of BC's most important rivers, and an important economic aspect of this river, other than transportation, is the fishery. This terminal is directly across from New Westminster, a growing city of over 65,000 with a vibrant, high-density shoreline redevelopment plan. It is well known that a large portion of BC's future economic growth depends upon exporting commodities from our ports. But the minimal job and payroll increase of this project does not justify the potential impact upon citizen health and increased economic risk, including commercial and residential development, tourism and recreation, consequentially to White Rock communities on Boundary Bay, and directly to the city of New Westminster. The metro cities have been vocal in their desire for more clean industry, innovation, research, and corporate headquarters. An upstream bulk coal terminal in the heart of the metro does not meet that profile, nor the environmental concerns of the region. It's simply the wrong location.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other speakers, we're going to vote on 1A. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Director Wilson, you were opposed.
Oh, well, I like to support it now.
Okay. Okay. I was just trying to be generous and not catch on purpose.
I said I didn't want to.
Okay, moving on to 1.11B. All those. Do you have to move each of them? Oh, wait, moved in second. Did you want to speak to it, Rob?
I was just going to say, this is an important prerequisite piece of information, Mr. Chair, that is important to considering any sort of air permit application.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other speakers, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Moving on to
Ask for a recorded vote on C.
Granted. I think we recorded them anyways, but. What did you ask for? A weighted vote? Do you want to take it first and then just see if it's closed? They're all weighted. I don't know if we need to go through.
The public has a right to know where it was.
Okay, just, I will go through the vote. I ask you to clearly show your hands. We will record who's in opposition. If it's unclear, then I will go through the process of asking each person to say yea or nay. We are on 1.1C. Are we clear? All right, we do have a couple speakers. Director Long.
Well, I was going to propose perhaps an amendment before we stand up before, and that is going back to the staff report of May the 4th, where originally said we would express concern about any coal shipments from the Fraser Estuary or other existing coal terminals. So rather than coming out in the total opposition, I think what we've heard today is a concern from everyone. So that's my proposal, back to what was originally suggested, which is to express.
Point of order, Director Beal.
Yeah, I think it is contrary, and I believe we should vote on C, and then if that is not passed, we should vote on the concern. Because I don't think anyone, even if they support C, would not support expressing concern. So I think we should vote on C.
Well, I don't think it's in contrary. I think voting, if you said express support, that would be contrary. Concern is, I think, a step down from opposition, so that's my ruling. So I'm going to allow it. If there's a seconder, we'll then debate it. Is there a seconder? It's seconder.
I don't agree. I think that is.
Do what you want. I'm making a ruling. If you don't like my ruling, you have a choice to make, and I'm okay with that choice that you might make if you want to question it. But
Question on the amendment.
we have an amendment, and we're discussing the amendment. If anybody would like to speak to it, the amendment is replacing the word opposition, the second word, with concern.
Can I amend the amendment to say and oppose? I think it's I'm hearing people want to discuss both of those issues. They don't want to vote against expressing concern, and then not have the opportunity to oppose.
Not everyone has had an opportunity to speak to item 1C. There were a lot of people carried on at 1A, but we haven't had a full discussion of all the members who want to speak to 1C.
Yeah, I just reading through it. That's throwing a curveball in there. Got to think through it. I think that's fair. So now we have an amendment to the amendment. This is going to get fun for everybody in the audience. So we are asking people to speak to adding the word oppose after concern in the amendment. So the motion would read express, the motion that's on that the amendment would read express concern and opposition to coal shipments in that point forward. So
Just to be clear, Vaughn's amendment was including quality as well. Just to be clear, Director Long's amendment was to go back to the staff recommendation, concern based on air quality concerns. And that Director Beal's amendment to the amendment was to add the words oppose, concern and oppose. Is that correct?
sorry, I didn't hear the air quality part of it.
Yeah.
But
Thanks. It is actually, as in the report of May 4th, item 3, B3.
May 4th.
It's in the report, but it's actually the report of May 4th.
So it is on page 25 of your agenda package.
Yes.
Okay, I see the last, you're saying the last part of that sentence, to clarify air quality impacts. So that's the original amendment. Now we have an amendment to the amendment. So we will discuss the amendment, which is adding back the word opposed to that. Just 1 second, I gotta get that last, this is getting kind of weird. Point of order, Mayor, or Rich, or whatever your name is. Director Stewart. It's good to be able to get started.
With great respect. The amendment is contrary to the original amendment. The original amendment took out the word proposition. The amendment would put it back in. And you can't amend something by doing the opposite of what you did.
And that's where I think I'm going to go is go back to the original motion, but the floor owns the amendment that was placed there. Now I'm concerned about the amendment to the amendment. So if the floor would like to withdraw the amendment that Director Long made, we would go back to the original motion that's in front of us. We could vote on that. If that failed, then we could look at a subsequent motion. For example, that Director Long is alluding to in the May 16th report. Director Walters.
Thank you. When we were talking about A and B, you allowed latitude for everyone to speak to C, and a lot of us who were following the rules didn't speak to C. And now we're having an amendment, and everyone's been denied the right to speak to C.
Actually, nobody's been denied the right to
Well,
vote to C.
we are
Just to clarify. No, let me just clarify. No one's been denied the right to vote to C. I'm just making sure the right motion is on the floor, so you'll have the ability to speak to C once we clarify the amendments to the amendments. So you will definitely have an opportunity to speak, for sure. Director Harris.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a question of clarification. We've got the discussion of whether it's concerned or opposed, but in the original staff recommendation, there was also an add-on which said on the basis of potential air quality impacts.
And that was with that was with Bob's or Director Long's amendment.
We've got a motion read as it is.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the motion is. One second, please. Okay, so I'm just going to allow the second amendment so we can get on with it. So the motion reads, sorry, because I've got a lot of things going on here. Express concern, the amendment to the amendment, so that's the amendment, plus the air quality at the end of it, but the second amendment that we're going to discuss, and if you want to read into it, that's fine, and opposition to coal shipments in the Fraser River Estuary and other than the existing Roberts Bank corridor on the basis of potential air quality impacts. So we are now debating the amendment to the amendment, which is and opposition. That's the word, and opposition. Okay, and then we'll go, if that passes or fails, we'll go back to the next motion, which is the concern part. If that passes or fails, we'll go back to the very first motion. Okay, does that make sense to everyone, hopefully? Okay. So I have a list here. I know we're going to go all over the place, but if we could try, and I know some people want to because they didn't speak before, but if we could try to hold it to the amendment of the amendment, which is the opposed part. Thank you. Director Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. nice to get a chance to speak to the item that's really in front of us. I'm speaking against the use of either the word opposed or opposition for this reason, and that is legally the mandate of Metro Vancouver is air quality and making a decision on an air quality permit application. We have not, Metro Vancouver has not yet received that application. And by taking a position contrary right up front now, it's actually premature and prejudicial to any subsequent application for an air discharge permit. And I think that would actually set up Metro Vancouver for a legal challenge. So I'm speaking against the word. I can live with the word concern. I can't live with the word opposed at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Corrigan.
Well, with the greatest respect, Mr. Chairman, is that this is how things go awry when there's an ill-advised decision to, in my view, to accept an amendment that is contrary to the motion. Is that the original speaker indicated that he didn't agree with the post, as has Director Drew, and they would prefer to express concern. They should have said, and I think it would have been appropriate for them to say, I want to vote against oppose, but I'm going to propose a motion that expresses our concern about the air quality issue. That would have made it very simple for the meeting to be able to deal with the issue. Now, you've got an amendment to the amendment where it brings back oppose and expresses concern and oppose, and you've got people arguing that's contrary to the amendment. That really makes the whole thing more convoluted than it had to be. And what I'm suggesting is that we should simply have a vote on whether or not we're opposed. If those speakers who wish to vote against it do so, then they can propose a motion that says they express concern about air quality. The issue also includes air quality. I think that the board has said very clearly in some of the speakers that they are opposed not just on the air quality issue, but on the general impact on the metropolitan region. And that was the expression of many of the people that spoke. Now, this amendment is quite contrary. By isolating it only to air quality, it does not deal, and you see now Director Drew arguing that we're outside our authority, is that we have every authority, every moral authority as a board to say, we oppose this development. And that was the opportunity we were looking for. So what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, is go back to having a vote. If those who wish to express concern want to propose a different motion, they can oppose the motion to oppose the project and simply bring that motion forward in due course. But now, we're going in circles.
I've got a solution for you. You can make a motion to withdraw the amendment, and then the amendment's the amendment, and then if that passed, you could make a second motion to withdraw the second one, because the floor owns it now based on my ruling. So that is a motion that could be made.
Well, I would like to get simple, so I'm going to move to have the amendment withdrawn.
The amendment's the amendment.
The amendment to the amendment.
Is there a second?
Call the question.
Is there any speakers to that? None? We'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Then it passes. So now that's
Move
good.
the withdrawal of the amendment.
Is everybody clear with which one? This is the concern. All right. Which will go back to the original.
Question.
Is there a seconder first? All those in favor? Opposed? So opposed. Drew and Long.
Somebody else must be.
Ferguson and Stewart. Delayed vote. All right. So there we go. We've cleared that all up. We're back to the original motion, and I have a speaking list. I'm not sure, you know what, I'm just going to, with all respect, I'm going to clear it right now because I've pressed a couple buttons here that I've got a queue waiting, so I'm just going to clear it all. And if you just push your buttons if you'd like to speak. Director Drew.
On the point that I raised, could we ask staff to provide some clarification on whether or not this resolution could become a prejudicial one legally? Thank you.
We would have to go into close to do that, and thus clear the room, I would suggest. Is that correct, Ralph? Yes. then you have the right to ask for that, so. I need a motion to go into close to. Can I just put that on pause and we do that at the end, if you don't mind? Thanks for that suggestion. Director Brody?
I think my question pertains to that last comment, and I think the version was on this about on the basis of air quality impacts. I think that's what he's getting at.
I think he is getting at that.
Okay, because in my, so it's a point of clarification, because in my motion on my agenda, in the package, it doesn't seem to have that.
Correct. That was part of Director Long's amendment.
All right, so that's out.
That is out.
All right. Okay, so there's no reference to air quality. It's, if you want to oppose it, it's just up to you as to bounce that.
Correct. Director Smith.
Mr. Chairman, we hire professional staff and presumably pay them properly to make recommendations, and we have what I consider a very sensible recommendation from staff saying that we should request more information, show our concern for the air quality, and make sure that there's mitigation processes in place if this project goes ahead. So it mystifies me why we don't accept the staff recommendation to get more information before we make a decision. To Director Corrigan's point, it's a good one about the 25 direct jobs, but we don't have the information about how many millions of dollars in tax revenue this might generate. So there's not enough information on the table to make an intelligent decision. So the only sensible thing I've read and heard, with all due respect to the delegations in the last 6.5 hours, is I read again the staff report, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know why we just don't accept it.
Thank you for your comments. Director Clay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The title of this item is Air Quality Impacts of New and Expanded Coastal Connectivity Metro Vancouver. That's the name of the item. It's the name of the report. It's the item that we were here to discuss. It's as the utility provider of Metro Vancouver, the GBRD, and as the Air Quality Authority. While there may be other issues, I don't know that we're here to debate whether a railroad track is being blocked in White Rock by the BNSF any more than we are if they're blocking Westwood Street or what I hope we have that conversation one day. But I can't agree more with Director Drew. I think that while we're all entitled to express our concern, I think that cities can do that individually as well if they want to oppose it. But I don't think that we in this forum should be opposing this. I think we should be doing what's in A and B, which is well within the mandate, and C is a general political statement on a board utility provider, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Director Walters?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was opposed at this recommendation at the committee, and I remain opposed. I think there's too many unanswered questions with regards to storage and stockpiling. We all do support job creation, but not at a cost to environment, and certainly not for 25 jobs. I think we are keeping with our mandate for the protection and improving of air quality, and I support the recommendation to oppose the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Stewart?
I'll agree. Almost exactly with the comments from Director Clay and Director Drew. I also want to go on the record. We use the rules of order of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia, and you can't, the majority of the legislature cannot withdraw an amendment, otherwise there would be no amendments from the opposition. So I don't know what happened there. Right now, we still have an amendment on the floor, and I think we're going to go outside with it.
Okay. Alternate Director Robinson? Yeah. Nothing? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Alternate Director first.
Thank you. I was elevated for a second there. I did want to say that the two youth are here still looking for the incentive. Kids for climate action, well done. It's better than my kids would do. I didn't, this has been a cyclical debate today. I mean, I don't think there's a single landlocked community in the region, and some of us with international borders as well. It's a sensitive and an issue that obviously is taken an awful lot of time, energy, and effort. I'm not by any means a biologist or an expert in law either or international affairs, but it would seem to me that prudence and information is where we should be at, rather than, I guess, somewhat expressing our own personal views on things, even if it is a concern to many of us that live in the waterway communities and border communities as well. I thought that there was a good compromise there at looking at a staff report and looking forward to hearing more information and getting more detail, because that indeed is something that we're all, I guess, challenged to find. So, I mean, whether, I guess, focusing expressing opposition or concern, I guess they could be defined differently. But the thing is, we need more information, and I guess we're caught up by our level of government and where we have control, where we don't have control. So it does cause a challenge for some of us that would like to see some action and more information, and not talk a lot about other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to clarify for everyone, under 8.3.1 of our procedures bylaw, it says that every motion submitted shall, when requested by a member, be reduced to writing and be decided upon or withdrawn before the main question is called. So it isn't, we do defer to the legislative unless our procedure bylaw does outline it, and our procedure bylaw does outline that the board can withdraw a motion.
That clause said it can be withdrawn. It said the board can force it out.
The board did force it, the voted for it to be out. So it's my ruling.
Question.
We do have another speaker. Director Reed.
Thank you. I just for my own clarification here. We passed A, we passed B, we're asking for more information. There's certainly some health issues that I'm interested in. So should we just be expressing concern or something on opposition? So we're going to say no before we get all the information we ask for. So why are we bothering to ask for more information? So we're just saying no now.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify that C is regarding one facility, not all of the facilities, and that's what A and B is discussing. It's not just one, but all of the facilities, because we know that there's other expansions going on. Director Stewart, I presume you're not? No. Thanks. Director Harris?
Thanks very much. I must echo what Director Reed said. We're expressing concern about both terminals, and then expressing our opposition to one. I've got serious concerns for all the reasons Director Corrigan and others have outlined, and reasons that I think we should be supporting, unless there's a legal question we'll find out about, because we do have a role in advocacy for the well-being and land use decisions and everything else in our region, economic development. So I have serious concern. I worry about opposition because there's information to be had, and I'm somewhat in a quandary about how to vote for this one. I would be happy if there were concern or opposition based on the information at hand and a request of staff to bring forward other information, because we can oppose it now. I would vote in favor of opposition now if I had to, because I think we can still change our minds. This is an advocacy position based on the information we have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Drew, you wanted to make a motion to go into close to seek some legal advice? Yes, Chair. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, sorry to our audience, we have to ask you to step out for a few minutes. Consent? Director Harris?
5.3,
1.3?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I don't think I got it up yet. I'm using my